Welcome, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair. Want to deal with a question that comes to me on a frequent basis, actually, more than you would think. And I think in our industry, for some reason, the frequency of this happening, I think, is a little bit higher than you would see in some other industries. I could be wrong. I'm only familiar mostly with appraisers, not other industries, but I think that it happens on a pretty frequent basis. And that is appraisers hiring family members. The question, of course, is, Dustin, is that a good idea? Can't wait to answer that question. Want to remind you first that we are sponsored by Working RE magazine. Working RE is the place that I go on a pretty frequent basis, folks, to find out what's going on in the appraisal industry. Now, I love the print magazine, but you'll also love the online version. Go to workingre.com. Again, it's workingre.com. We're also sponsored, of course, by DataMaster. DataMaster is the opportunity for you to save 30 to 60 minutes per report. Check out why by going to datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. Once again, it's datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. And finally, we are sponsored by the software that I use to get my appraisals done quickly and efficiently with high quality. It's Alamode. It's Alamode. Alamode.com is where you go, or you can call them at 1-800-ALAMODE. Well, folks, as a mentor, as a teacher, as a coach, as an appraiser coach, have an opportunity on a regular basis to help appraisers to better their lives, to better their businesses. And part of that is the law of delegation. I've talked about it here before. I've talked about it in my Go Create Some Value workshop, which remind me, I will tell you how to get a very steep discount on that at the end of the show. That is one of the biggest pillars of success, is being able to delegate some of the tasks that you do on a regular basis to other people, competent people, people who are managed, people you can oversee, which will allow you to do more with less, which will allow you to raise the quality of your report. That's what it's all about. That's the law of delegation. Now, here's the thing. Appraisers, for whatever reason, have this interest in hiring their family members, whether it be a spouse, Aunt Mabel, maybe it's their children, which I'm going to talk about a little bit today. It doesn't matter. Whoever it is, they are looking to hire, to get help, and that is low-hanging fruit, if you will. It's easy to reach out to people that you know because you know them. You know their situation that they're in. You know they're looking for a job. You know that your spouse, wants to get back into the work field or is tired of their job. And, hey, you know what? Maybe he can help me with what I'm doing. And so you start to look at opportunities to share this experience with those around you. Well, the question comes, Dustin, is that a good idea? Do you really want me to answer that question? Actually, the answer might surprise you. And what I want to do today is to break this down. First of all, I'm going to tell you this, and I know you get sick of hearing this answer to the question, is it a good idea? Is it okay to hire your family members? Or, really ask me any question, and I might answer you this way, and that is, it depends. And I think that there's a right way to do it. I really do. Now, you may not like the answers that I give you, because one of the reasons we hire family members is because we are looking for low-hanging fruit. Now, I'm not telling you that your family members are fruity, but, maybe some of them are. What I'm saying is we look for easy ways to fix a problem. And if the problem is, hey, I don't have enough help in the office, and hey, my spouse needs a job, or Aunt Mabel's looking for a job, or it's really easy, instead of advertising, instead of interviewing, instead of going through this process of hiring, it's easy to reach out to those that we know best. And that happens to be our family members. And we reach out to them and we say, hey, why don't you come work for me? This could be a great situation. I like you, you like me. We're a happy family. This is a great situation to get involved in, right? Maybe not. Maybe not. I think it can be done. In fact, I know it can be done. Now, I've done it the right way and I've done it the wrong way. And I've hired family members. And, I can tell you it's fraught with landmines. But I think those things can be navigated. And I want to give you 4 rules or 4 tips, if you will, 4 pillars, whatever you want to call them, to look at if you are Now, these are, by the way, these are things that you should consider no matter who you are hiring. But I think that they are especially true when it comes to family members, because sometimes these 4 things go out the window. You're in need. You need somebody hired. You need help. And so you look to family members and you kind of put these blinders on. And you say to yourself, you know what, there could be some problems here, but we'll work it out. You know, we've worked out things in the past. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Will it be? I think it can be, but I think you have to be super duper careful about how you do it. So I want to give you 2 of them now. We're going to break. I'll tell you a little bit about our sponsors, and then I'm going to come back from the break and give you 2 additional, what do we want to call these? Foundational principles. We'll call them that. Foundational principles on how to hire family members. And of course, this applies to anybody that you hire, but especially family members, and I would say secondarily friends. Okay, if you're looking at hiring your neighbor, your friend, you want to look at these 4 foundational things. So when an appraiser comes to me and says, hey, Dustin, I'm thinking about hiring Aunt Mabel. What do you think? Well, this is the answer I'm going to give them. And that is, number one, hire based on the need of the company, not based on the need of the family member. Okay, hire based on what you need as an employer, not based on the family member. I cannot tell you, I know this sounds silly, folks, and I know you think I'm making this up, but I tell you, it happens all the time. And that is, hey, Dustin, great Aunt Mabel really needs a job. I think I can work her into my company. What do you think? And that's the mindset. Folks, that is the tail wagging the dog. I'm telling you, you're putting the cart before the horse, and any other metaphor you can come up with, right? You are doing thing bass-ackward. You're not doing it the way that should be done. And that is this, folks. You have got to look out for your company and your business first. And if people fit into that dream, that vision, that model, then fine. Maybe that works out. But if you find somebody is in need of a job and so you start to make and create that job for them, you are already starting off on the wrong foot. Now, it may work out, but I doubt it. I really do. I've seen it happen over and over, and I've done it myself. I've done it myself because the perfect candidate came to me and I thought, my gosh, this is perfect too. You know, I'm not looking for somebody and I certainly don't have an opening, but how can I pass this guy up, right? And so I create the position and fit that person into a square peg, into a round hole, and it just doesn't work very well, right? And what ends up happening, folks, is in the end, maybe in the beginning it'll be fine, and maybe you tweak a few things, and maybe you might get a little frustrated here and a little frustrated there. But folks, if you don't have the need for an employee, if you are making that need from scratch, you are already starting off on the wrong foot. Be careful. Be careful. I'm going to give you a quick analogy. Years ago, I taught school, and it was a private school. It was middle school. And I taught for, 4 or 5 years. That was my other life, if you will. And, you know, on a pretty regular basis, I would meet with my colleagues, and they were teachers as well. And they would come up with an incredible object lesson, you know, something that had a fog machine and strobe lights and explosions and the whole 9 yards, right? And they would say, look at this cool thing that you can do in your classroom. And I would, my eyes would get big and I would see glitter and I would say, wow, that's so neat. I can't wait to try that in my lesson. In fact, I think I'll try that tomorrow. And then I would look at my lesson and go, gee, I wonder what my lesson is tomorrow. Oh, it's on such and such. I wonder how I can fit that object lesson into that topic. And I would create a lesson around an object lesson. Well, folks, do you see where I'm going with this analogy? Okay. The point is if I got word of a really cool object lesson, the best thing to do was to put that on the back burner, to put it in my filing system, if you will. And when a topic came up that object lesson fit into nicely, then I could pull that out of my file cabinet and I could use it, right? That's the better way to do it. In other words, I had a need for an object lesson and I reached out and I got that filled, okay? What you don't want to do is say, I want to do this object lesson, so I'm going to create a lesson around the object lesson. That defeats the purpose of teaching. The object of today is not the object lesson. It's the lesson and the object lesson is supposed to support the lesson. Well, likewise, I see a lot of appraisers, sometimes they create a business opportunity or a role or an employee situation based on the fact that they have an employee that they want to utilize. Their spouse comes to them and says, honey, I'm super tired of, fill in the blank. I want to come work for you. And the appraiser goes, okay, well, let me think how we can fit you in. Folks, that is the wrong way to start this process. And if you start it that way, my guess is it's probably not going to end well. So principle number one is hire based on the needs of the company. In other words, if you have a need, and I would even go so far as if that family member fits that need, okay, let's say you have a need for a data entry person, and your spouse is not a very good data entry person. Could they do the job? Sure. But they're a customer service rep. Okay, that's what they do. That's what they do well. That's their talent. That's their experience. That's their abilities. Well, folks, if you try to put that square peg into that round hole, you're going to be disappointed. If you try to get that customer service person to be a great data entry person, they may just not be that person. And just because you have a need for a job or for a fulfillment of a job opening does not mean that particular family member is going to fit that need. So number one, make sure that you hire based on the needs of the company. Number two, this is quintessential. This is paramount. You have to treat that person like an employee. You have to treat that person like an employee. But Dustin, they're not. They're my spouse. They're my daughter. They're my friend. Okay. I'm telling you, folks, if you treat that person in your employment like your daughter, like your friend, and heaven forbid, like your spouse, it's very, very difficult to make this work long term. How do I know? How do I know is because I've mentored appraiser after appraiser after appraiser where this really didn't turn out good. Okay, take my word for it, folks. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You don't have to reinvent fire. It's already been invented for you. I can tell you. Again, anecdotal, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I'm telling you over and over and over and over again, I see this not working out, and here's why. Appraisers do not treat their family members like employees. They treat them like family members. If you treat them like family members, they will act like family members. If they act like family members, they're not acting like employees. If they're not acting like employees, they are not doing your business any favors. So number two, treat them like an employee. And I would tell them going into it, I would say, hey, listen, I'm willing to give this a shot, but here's the deal. The exact same rules that I have for any other employee apply to you. And that includes the principle number 4 that we're going to get to after the break, okay? And that is you have to act like a boss and they have to act like an employee. There is a structure in a business and it has to be fulfilled, whether that person is your spouse, whether that person is your friend from across the street, or whether that person is your son or daughter. Let me give you a true life example of how this has worked out in my life. My daughter, currently going to college, needs a part-time job, comes to me, Daddy, I need a job. Okay, fine. Corinne, that's her name. Let's talk about this. I actually have a need for someone, and I can get away with paying you less than I can pay somebody else. So that's a plus on my side. Number 2, I can see you have a need. Okay, fine. Let's think about this. Does your talent base, and I know you pretty well. I've known you for 19 years. I've known you longer than you've known yourself, because when you were young, you don't remember that person, but I do. So I've known you longer than you've known yourself. I know you pretty darn well. And I know what you can do well, and I know what you can't do well. And it just happens to be that your talent base, your experience, and your abilities fit the personality and the profile of the demographic I'm looking for to fill this particular position. Great. Number 1, fulfilled. I'm not creating the position based on the need. I'm hiring the person based on the need that's already there. That's number 1. Okay, great. We've covered that. But Corinne, you need to understand that at work, I am not your dad. At work, I am your boss. And here's some of the ways that we're going to remind you of that. You are going to have employee interviews, and I'm going to sit down with you on a regular basis, and we're going to talk about your performance. and we're going to write it down on a sheet of paper about your goals and how they've been or not been fulfilled. Some of the things I'm concerned about, we're going to talk about those things. Furthermore, and this is going to sound extreme, Corinne, but here's the deal. At work, because you're not my daughter and I'm not your dad, you will not call me dad. Now, at home, you still call me dad. I don't like to go by my first name basis. I know some parents don't mind that, but I don't. I don't like that. I want to be called dad, daddy, father, what have you, at home. And so you're going to continue to call me dad at home, but you will not use that term at the office. Now, if you slip once in a while, that's fine. Just correct yourself. We'll move on. No harm, no foul. But at work, I'm Dustin. Just like all of my other employees call me Dustin, you will call me Dustin as well. Now, I'm not one of these stuck-up guys that require you to call me Mr. Harris or boss or what have you. I have a little bit of humility there, I hope. But here's the deal. At work, I am not your dad, and so you call me Dustin at work. When we get home from work, I may say to you, at 6 o'clock in the evening, after you've logged off and I've logged off and we're home and we're having dinner together as a family, I might turn to you and say, hey, Corinne, how was work? When I answer that question, do not say to me, well, you know how work was. You were there. Do not do that, because we are going to separate work from home. We're going to separate employee, employer from father, daughter, or family. Okay. And so we're going to make that clean break. And when we're at home, if I say to you, how was work? You pretend that I wasn't there. And you might say to me, well, my boss is a hard ass. But we're dealing with it this way, that way. And I promise to not take offense at that because I happen to be your boss. I'm going to pretend at home that I'm not. We're going to make that separation. Now, folks, I know you're thinking, really, Dustin? I mean, that's going a little overboard, don't you think? Maybe. But here's the thing. I would rather err on the side of going too far to that extreme than I would on doing what the tendency is, and that is mixing oil and water, mixing those two things. Church and state do not overlap, and neither should business and family, okay? Which will bring me to my next two principles after this break. I first want to remind you that we are sponsored, of course, by Alamode Software. Alamode, I love Alamode. I really do. We had a situation just today where, for whatever reason, we had a correction come back 2 months after we had done the appraisal, something that they needed tweaked. Well, guess what? I couldn't find the order. What in the world? Well, guess what? With the help of Alamode's tech support, I was able to pull it up. I love Alamode, and I love their tech support. They are the best tech support in the appraisal software business, as they are the best software in the business. If you are not using Alamode, folks, you should be. Alamode.com is where you want to go, alamode.com, or you can call them. Just pick up the phone and call 1-800-ALAMODE. Speaking of great software, and speaking of saving you time, and speaking of great tech support, DataMaster will be all of that for you. DataMaster is the opportunity to download your MC sheet, your subject data, your MLS data. Folks, can you imagine not having to enter another comp again? You find your comparables on the MLS, sure, and then you hit one button and it will import them directly into your software, whatever software you're using. DataMaster will do it. If you're not using DataMaster, why don't you try them out? For 2 full weeks, you can get unlimited downloads of DataMaster. All you have to do is go to datamasterfreetrial.com/coach. Once again, just go to datamasterfreetrial.com/coach, and you can try DataMaster for 14 days, unlimited downloads. Finally, we are sponsored by Working RE Magazine. Working RE, folks, is the email that I get maybe once or twice a week. They have a big reach. It's free to sign up for their email. I highly encourage that you do. A lot of times I get a heads up on things that are going on in my industry and your industry, the appraisal industry, through my email. And then I go to their website at workingre.com to learn more, to read full articles, to take webinars, to get discounts on all kinds of things. Check them out. You can go to workingre.com to sign up for their email, or to peruse, look through the topics that they have for appraisers. Folks, if you want to know what's going on in the appraisal profession, check out Working RE Magazine. All right, folks, welcome back. Hey, just a quick shout out to something I thought of during the break. If you have a topic that you would like to see on the Appraiser Coach podcast, would you email me, thecoach@theappraisercoach.com? And one step further, this is not a requirement, but it's an option. If you are willing to come on the podcast as a guest and talk about a topic that's near and dear to your heart, or just to have a question answer back and forth with me, I would love to have you on the program. Just reach out to me, thecoach@theappraisercoach.com. Okay, folks, today we're talking about hiring family members and possible pitfalls that you might endure if you go through that process. I've had an opportunity as a coach to see the good and the bad in this. For some reason, appraisers are very prone to hiring family members, whether it be a spouse, whether it be a daughter, a son, an aunt, an uncle, a nephew, a niece, a family member, in any aspect, or, let's throw into the mix maybe a neighbor, a trusted friend. I think the same rules apply. And really these rules apply to any employee. Keep in mind, even if you don't have a relationship now with a hiree, just by nature of working with them, you're going to develop a relationship. It's going to happen, okay? So I think these are 4 rules that, yes, there are 4 rules for hiring family members, but they apply to a lot of different situations. We've already covered the first 2. Just to recap, the first one is hire based on the needs of the company, not based on the needs of the family, okay? Hire based on your needs as a company, not just because somebody is in need of a job. Number 2, treat them like an employee. I told you the experience I had with my daughter that at work, she calls me Dustin. At first, it was kind of weird. And once in a while, she does slip at home, but she corrects herself. Okay. She calls me dad at home. She calls me Dustin at the office because at the office, I'm her boss. At home, she is my child and I'm her father. Okay. Number 3, this will actually kind of play into, it's a little bit of a twist on the first 2. I think really you could just say there's 2 principles, right? But I wanted to break them out because I think they are a little bit different and I did want to give them the emphasis that I think they're needed. Number 3 is that at 5 o'clock or whenever you get off work, you must divorce yourself from work, okay? You must divorce yourself from work. Had an opportunity just over the weekend. I was sitting in a lounge of a hotel where I had just spoken to a group of appraisers, and we were sitting around talking about the appraisal industry, and there was an appraiser there with his future bride. Okay, they were engaged to be married, and we were talking about that, and he was talking about the fact that he was looking at possibly hiring her, and so we talked about these principles. Not much later, I ran into a couple who came up to me at my booth, and they said, "Hey, we want some advice on." Actually, they were talking about A-Now software. They wanted to know about A-Now software. And so they're a sponsor here, and I use them on a regular basis. And so we talked about A-Now software, and I think they were pretty darn impressed, and they were walking away and getting ready to sign up. But in the midst of the conversation, it came out that they were husband and wife, that they were a team, that he was an appraiser, she was a trainee. And she had worked in the office for a lot of years. Now, I bring up both of these situations because they tie together. The situation at my booth with this husband and wife team was interesting because they said, I asked them, I said, do you have a hard time working together? And they said, we made it our rule in the beginning that we would not mix business with family. And so when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm at home, I'm at home. And we make sure that we make that break. Okay, we divorce ourselves, not in marriage, but we divorce the business when we are together as a couple. I think that is super wise. That is principle number 3. This other couple that I met, the one that was engaged to be married, that we were sitting in the lounge, one of the things that they told me, and it stuck with me, is I said, it's interesting that you guys feel like you can work together, and da-da-da-da. And he said, a long time ago, even before we're married, obviously we're still engaged, we were given some great advice that we have tried to implement. And the advice is, we have an opportunity to veto any conversation. We have an opportunity to veto any conversation. In other words, if we're out to dinner and somebody says, that appraisal I was working on today, the other spouse can say, or the other partner rather can say, oh, I veto this conversation, or I table this conversation till we get to work tomorrow. I don't want to talk about work right now. I want to talk about us. I want to talk about the kids. I want to talk about whatever, anything except work. Okay. So rule number 3 is divorce yourself from work when you get off work, whether that be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock, some of you 2 in the morning, whatever. When you walk out of the office, walk out of the office. Lock the door behind you and lock all of your problems and your troubles in there. I guarantee, folks, you're going to struggle if you bring work home with you, and it is super easy to do when you work with your family members. So number 3, divorce your work at 5 o'clock. Number 4, the final foundational principle in hiring a possible family member is please never hire somebody that you can't fire. Please never hire someone that you can't fire. I tell my family members, in fact, I told my daughter when I hired her, I said, not only are you going to call me Dustin at work and Dad at home, and not only are we going to have that separation psychologically, but we're going to have that separation in reality as well, and that is this. I don't hire anybody that I can't fire. I don't hire anybody, and that includes you. That includes you, my lovely daughter. If you are dishonest with me, if you and this is not work, okay? This is not. We're not going to cross these things. That doesn't mean if she does something goofy at home that I'm going to fire her from work. Okay, I'm not going to cross those paths. As far as I'm concerned, she is a different person. Literally, she is a different human being at work than she is at home. I would never at work say, well, you screwed up last night. You stayed up past your bedtime. Therefore, here's some busy work. Never do that, ever. Okay. But in a very true sense, if you screw up at work, I'm not going to say, well, yeah, she screwed up at work, but she's my daughter, so I'm going to give her a pass. Folks, I'm telling you, that might work out 1 or 2 times for you. It's not going to work out long term. It's not. I promise it's not. I've seen it fail too many times to be true, okay? It is a principle that you've got to live by. If you're willing to hire, you have to be willing to fire. I often give this advice again to family members, to appraisers who are going to hire not just family members, but neighbors. Hey, Dustin, I got a best friend and he wants to be an appraiser and I'm thinking about hiring him. What do you think? And I say, don't ever hire someone that you can't fire. And if that's going to affect your friendship, don't do it. Don't do it. I don't care how in need of a job they are. If you cannot fire them, if you don't have the freedom, the ability, the lack of fear, the courage, the ability to be able to fire that person, do not hire them. All right, just to recap. Number 1, hire based on the need of the company, not based on the employee. Treat them like an employee, not a family member. Divorce at 5 o'clock. In other words, do not bring work home with you. And finally, never hire someone that you can't fire. Folks, I talked earlier about the Go Create Some Value workshop. If you want some principles that will change the way that you do business, I mean, literally, you want the foundational principles of what I teach as the appraiser coach, you cannot do better than to start with my Go Create Some Value workshop. It is online. You can go to theappraisercoach.com and simply click on workshop. And if you put in the coupon code podcast, that's can't even spell today. POD podcast, PODCAST, you will get $50 off. I hope you will join us there, and I hope you will join us online as well. Catch you next time here at the Appraiser Coach Podcast.